Erik Halterman of RotoWire here with some more trade tips for you. We'll follow the same format we've had going the last few weeks. One traditional buy low, one buy while you still can. That's not a buy high, but a buy before he gets even higher. One traditional sell high and one sell while you still can. Let's start on the sell high again this week. Selling high on one of the stories of the season so far, Kyren Paris. Now, you absolutely did the correct thing by picking Paris up a week or two ago, but you can make the most of that decision by flipping him now for some proven talent while the hype is still at its strongest. Paris had a remarkable story. He had a modest 757 OPS in the minors, showed good speed, but not great power, and a 31% strikeout rate. That's the sort of profile which typically doesn't work out long term, and in his first 2 cups of coffee at the major league level, he struggled to a 378 OPS while still striking out over 30% of the time. Now, through 14 games this season, Paris has a 1309 OPS, cut his strikeout rate all the way down to 22%. 5 homers and 5 steals makes him one of the top fantasy earners to date. And there's a narrative here as well, which is that he changed his swing in the offseason. He worked with Aaron Judge's hitting coach, Richard Shank. That's enough reason to believe that the breakout is at least somewhat real and that Paris is a different player than he's been up to this point in his career. And that's the story that you will try to sell your trade partner on. Now, there's some real negatives here as well, because while the speed is real for Paris, he's in the 95th percentile in sprint speed and plays for a team that loves to run, I still have some real questions about the bat on both the power and the contact here. Paris has connected on enough balls over a small sample to give him an incredible barrel rate of 17%, but if you take all of his batted balls, his average exit velocity of 87.3 miles per hour is still quite low. It would have ranked 113th out of 129 qualifiers last year. Also, there are doubts about his contact improvements. His strikeout rate has jumped all the way up to slightly better than average, but if you look at it on a per pitch basis, Paris's whiff rate is down in the 3rd percentile. Unless that changes soon, his strikeout rate will shoot back up over 30% before too long. So again, you did the right thing by picking up Kyren Paris when you did. There is a real player here who is going to help some fantasy teams, but the hype right now is out of control. He's going to fall back to earth due to some major red flags, so get the most of him while his stock is at its highest. Another player I'd be looking to sell is Yainer Diaz. Now, fantasy catchers, if they're going to be elite fantasy catchers, they need an outlier number of plate appearances. Last year, only 5 catchers had more than 550 plate appearances. They actually all had more than 600, and all of them finished in the top 6 in fantasy value. Diaz was 5th in plate appearances among catchers last year and 3rd in earned value. Now, so far this year, Diaz is only 12th in plate appearances, and I don't think that's a coincidence. For one, Diaz is a worse player in real life than he is in fantasy. Primarily, that's because he's not a very good defender, which matters quite a bit for a catcher, but the other reason is that he doesn't walk. If you take his batting average last year, he led all catchers, minimum 300 plate appearances, but if you look at his OBP, he was merely 8th. That matters much more than batting average when it comes to actually winning real-life baseball games. Diaz last year was able to be the designated hitter quite frequently. He made 36 starts at DH last season, but he's only made 1 this year, which puts him on pace for just 10. The Astros have said that Jordan Alvarez is going to spend more time as the DH, and that's been the case so far. So if Diaz is blocked off from getting his outlier number of plate appearances, it's going to be really hard for him to finish as a top 5 fantasy catcher. And saying all that, I haven't even mentioned Diaz's actual performance this season. He's hitting 130 with 1 homer and a 401 OPS through 12 games, striking out more than he ever has. He has shown some signs of life in the last few games, which means I think you still have a window to trade him. I don't think he's going to slump this badly all year, but I think the upside for Diaz is not as high as it seemed to be in draft season. The lack of DH at-bats is going to give him a pretty modest ceiling, so I'd wait until he has a couple good games and then look to flip him while people are still willing to give you a real offer. I'll get to my 2 players to buy in a minute, but first I wanted to remind you about our My Leagues page over at rotowire.com, where you can upload your leagues and use the trade finder to see a list of trades that our projections think will help your team. If you're interested in signing up, we've got a new offer for you, a promo code. Enter the code ROTO15 at checkout to receive 15% off any RotoWire product. Now on to the buy lows. We've got Matt Olson, who is a classic example of a player whose struggles are only surface level. Olson is hitting just 193 through 13 games and only has 1 homer, but he's being held back by a 227 BABIP. If you look at his expected batting average according to StatCast, he should be hitting 274, which would be the second best mark of his career. He's only striking out 17% of the time, which would also be the second best mark of his career. And he has the exact same walk rate, which would be a career high. If we zoom into a per pitch level, Olson's making contact on a career high number of swings, and he's chasing just 27% of the time, which would be the third best mark of his career. So Olson's plate discipline still seems great. What about his power? Well, he only has 1 homer, but his 18% barrel rate is a career high. His 16% hard hit rate, you guessed it, that's a career high as well. So a player who's hitting the ball harder than ever and more often than ever is a player who should be at the start of a career year, not a player who's stuck in a deep slump. I would expect Atlanta's lineup to get a lot better once Ronald Acuna returns, so grab Olson now while the surface stats remain ugly, and then enjoy him driving in Ronald Acuna all summer long. And finally, I would say buy while you still can on Brice Turang. Turang stole 50 bases last year and had a firm grip on playing time heading into this season, making him one of the safest cheap speed sources out there in draft season, but that really kind of looked like all he was because he really struggled at the plate. Turang had a 585 OPS as a rookie, a 665 OPS last year. None of those good marks at all. 6 homers as a rookie, then 7 hard hit rates below 30% both times. Just looks like someone who can't impact the ball enough to be even average at the plate in the majors. But through 17 games this season, you might be disappointed actually that Turang only has 3 steals, but he also has 3 homers, and that doesn't look like a fluke. Turang made some changes in his setup at the plate this season, and it's unlocking a ton of added power. His hard hit rate has jumped all the way to 51%. Remember, he'd never even been above 30% before. His average exit velocities jumped from 87 miles per hour all the way up to 93.6. And this comes as Turang has added 3 miles per hour of bat speed. Now, he's still only in the 17th percentile, but he was in the 2nd percentile last year. Means he's not swinging like a slugger, but he's right in between guys like Trey Turner and Bo Bichette on the bat speed leaderboard. Those are 2 middle infielders who have given us high 20s home run totals in the past. I'm not projecting that for Turang just yet, but he is a legitimately different player in his age 25 season, has legitimately added strength, and so if he's added the muscle necessary to get to 15 to 20 homers, and he's still a threat to steal 30, 40, maybe even 50 bags like last year, that's a different player than we thought Brice Turang was. I'd grab him now before the price gets too high. That's going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments if you agree with these names or if you think I'm crazy. And remember, promo code ROTO15 gets you 15% off a subscription at rotowire.com.